Okay. Just wanted to like have a little bit of a catch up. You know, I've had a baby. Matt started reading a new book. Andrew's been growing out a beard. So I think that's
And
a pretty full
I've got a
full
new
episode.
flex.
Okay, well, let's save it for the cheers. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the July Common Room. As you can see, Andrew is already showing off his stuff. Andrew, you want to bring it back? Tell us what you've bought now.
Arthurian torso, containing the posthumous fragment of The Figure of Arthur by Charles Williams and a commentary on the Arthurian poems of Charles Williams by C.S. Lewis. What's really nice, though, is on the reverse. There's a review by Gervais Matthew, who was an Inkling, and also by Dorothy Sayers. So I was just dipping into that a little bit. So that's great fun. And I
did appreciate your when I did the interview with your wife on Henry Nouwen, Dr. Kristen Ditchfield Lazo. Very
Lazo Major.
Lazo Major. Very quickly
Lazo the
started
Greater.
out with a show and tell of a Henry Nouwen mug. I'm like wife, like husband.
Yeah, well, you gotta have flex, baby. I'm turning off the camera just to see if I can make it less fuzzy. There. Oh wait. Yes. No. Oh. Hello. So, had a fun phone call since I spoke with you all last. I had a friend, couple of friends who met at Oxbridge, and part of their meeting was during morning prayer, and they called to see if I would perform their wedding in October.
Aw.
So that's lovely.
That's beautiful.
And then I wish you could see it. I have just arranged all of my shelves and put all the eBay in very beautiful array. And so, for that, forgive my horrible look. Kristen and I just took our sweaty walk after dinner.
Well, speaking of shelves, my office is starting to come together a little bit. Here's most of my Lewis
well
stuff.
Done.
My maps of Narnia and Middle Earth. It's coming together.
See
I love
close
it.
I can get.
Yeah, don't pull the entire thing down. Ooh, I see Narnia first editions.
Yes, and I sold that British first, set of British firsts, and then there's the American firsts, and a bunch more British firsts down there.
I'm gonna pretend like I can hear what you're saying, Andrew.
You can't hear me.
It's brag. First edition. First edition.
A complete set of the British firsts that I've already sold, complete set of the American firsts that I'm about to sell or trade, and more British and American firsts. I've got a complete set of the American firsts of the Ransoms, and then the Brutalist set, and loads of Great Divorces and Mere Christianities, and two complete second printings of Mere Christianity. So, but I finally just moved all of my books out and got them all organized. So,
Since there's only so many of these, and I can't imagine there's a ton, I'd be curious the percentage of like firsts or seconds or near that have gone through your presence over the last decade.
my hands. There's been a number. So,
I'd imagine.
yeah.
Well, today I didn't have a whole lot to specifically talk about. I didn't have a major topic, so I just thought we could just catch up a little bit. Because, my life update, I now have a daughter on the outside. Lucy Francis is an absolute delight. She is very sleepy because she was a little early. And she is chunky on the weight, so she's going to be a fatty very, very soon. And I'm not purposely regrowing my facial hair. This is just because in the last 3 weeks I have washed about 3, maybe 4 times and don't have time to do too much with my face before I've got to run and look after a very energetic toddler. Alexander has now officially transferred over. He is in toddler territory now. Just exhausting.
How old is he now?
He'll be 2 in September.
Oh, way off, Matt.
He's like he's like 5, right?
Time has been flying, David. And he's just so wise and smart, like his father. Easy mistake to make.
This is very true. This is very true. His really cute thing at the moment is he'll say, "Pray, Jesus, pray, Jesus." He always wants to pray in front of our icon wall before and after meals now. So raise him right. What have you been up to, Matt?
Icons.
Ooh, pretty.
That is. We should just retitle this common room Andrew's room.
I finally cleaned my room. I took a whole Sabbath day to lollygag and play video games and sit in my chair, and I woke up with the idea I'm going to arrange some shelves so that all my eBay is just on one shelf, and it just looks lovely, and I move some things around, and it just feels much better. So,
by the way, Andrew, you are a bit quiet. Could you either move the microphone closer to your face or your face closer to the microphone?
Yep. How about that?
That's much better. Thank you.
A little bit better.
Good.
Yeah,
so, Matt,
me. I wish I had it in front of me. It's in my backpack over there. But I guess the big update is this book that was given to me has been one of the more impactful books in a couple years, probably. Ralph Martin, The Fulfillment of All Desire. And it just continues to be absolutely incredible. It's Teresa of Avila, St. Augustine, Bernard of
Clairvaux.
That one. Catherine of Siena, Therese of Lisieux, St. Francis de Sales. And it's following these saints. And I would say, honestly, half of it is just their text in quotes, and then the other half is the author obviously guiding you through all of this. And the combination of, me in details, I'm only paying attention to big picture. I believe it was Teresa of Avila with the 4 torments of hell. And her vision there of seeing Satan as disgusting as he is, and truly what he is versus the deception that we see. Some of the other stuff she talked about, Catherine of Siena talking about the bridge, Jesus being the bridge, and he is the way that we have to go through, which we're used to that. He's the way, the truth, the life, all this stuff. But it's like when you read it in this context, just the way it's been presented was really inspiring. And then probably the biggest thing was St. Augustine and the way he talked about his conversion. It had been almost a decade and a half, 12 years since I had read Confessions, and so I had just really forgot how relatable his story was. So all of this coming together of maybe a more realization that becoming a hellish creature, Lewis talks about heavenly hellish creatures. It's almost as though too clever that you don't really think about what that means, and then the way Teresa of Avila presented it made me realize what a hellish creature looks like. And then St. Augustine's was, I think what St. Augustine's was he felt so much despair, like he couldn't do this. If I remember reading, he said something along the lines of he had no hope. He was like intellectually converted, but his heart just wasn't, he just didn't think he could do it. And then all of a sudden he had this great realization. He's like, I can't. But with Christ, I can. So that, right, with the 1-2 punch of Catherine of Siena, and it was just a really inspiring thing, all while I'm at adoration on a Friday night at 7:30 with beautiful worship music for a couple hours and candlelit, and the whole thing, the sensory experience, the intellectual experience, the heart-moving experience, and a beautiful confession with a priest. And I've gone to daily mass 3-4 times a week for the last few weeks. It's been wonderful. Back to wonderful prayer life in the morning. Even one of our podcast listeners who's become a friend, Matt, who lives in London, he's also a supporter. Him and I were chatting, and he was talking about, I think he was actually talking about Stoicism, but the errors of Stoicism, like this idea of there's like seasons of life. I don't know. I'm not going to go down that tangent. Actually, that's going to be a whole other tangent.
You may be quoting Lewis, who talks about the sin of the Stoics, or the error of the Stoics, to think that one can always do what one can sometimes do.
That's thank you. This is why I keep you guys around as co-hosts on my podcast. That was wonderful. No, that's exactly what it was.
To Malcolm.
And I think when I look back, I was constantly trying to get back to a different season with my spiritual practices and just recreate that because it was a really great season, and not understanding it's a different one.
You'll find it in Letters to Malcolm, chiefly on prayer.
Available on eBay at a bargain price.
I picture Kristen pouring her heart out, and Andrew's pulling up these books. The answer's in here, Kristen. Look, it's right here.
She has more books in her room than I do.
I believe that, actually. Yeah. The conversation with her, by the way, Andrew, was lovely.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Yeah, she's done some great work on that, and it's always a delight for her to join in.
Can you drink the cup? What a title to a book. It's a title to one of Nouwen's later books I'd not known of.
Yeah.
What a question.
One of my favorite Nouwens, by the way.
It's a good thing so anyone who's still somehow watching this after the beginning, we do these mainly so Andrew doesn't do this on the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Gets it out of his system.
Of the Lord. No. This is not a flex.
Just kidding, Andrew.
But this is a book for my contemplation class.
Behold the beauty of the Lord. Whoa.
Praying with icons. And so there's this marvelous one that I have the reproduction of.
I wanted to read his, the other one she talked about was The Way of the Eucharistic Life or something like that.
And there's this
another one of his books.
Right, and there's this one I have right there. But this book comes with these cards, and he talks about his experience of praying with these and a couple of other icons, and it was just deeply moving to me. So, yeah, yay Nouwen, and yay the Catholics. And by the way, a friend of mine has got a real devotion to, he's an Episcopal priest, but a real devotion to Ignatian spirituality, and he's gone to Spain and, gone on long retreats doing the whole thing. And at my ordination, he gave me a medal or a crest from Saint Xavier, who is Ignatius's good friend. And so I am wide open, listeners and co-hosts, to learning more about Saint Xavier and learning about them. So if you got stuff, send it my way.
His letters. His letters are really good.
Saint Xavier's letters?
Mm.
Okay.
One other thing I'll add in this journey, one of the things I was reading, and I should have known this, but again, this is what happens when you get away sometimes from spiritual practices. Part of my morning reading, I love to just sit down and just read one chapter of Scripture, New Testament Gospels. So I started with 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, letter to Jude, just kind of working through this stuff. John has the reputation as the beloved disciple, right? Love, some of this higher theology, all this stuff. And all that's true, obviously. I shouldn't have said has this reputation. It makes it sound like it's false. But you read 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, it's pretty harsh in terms of obedience, don't do evil. Like, that side of him is not talked about quite as much. It's like you just picture him as this tender love. But and that is the case. But I guess the point where I'm going with all of this is love is obedience. Love is becoming a type of person. Love is action. Love is will. Like, you see that. I don't think I really realized that until you just read the 1 John, 2 John, 3 John. It's like unbelievably obvious. Half the writing is that. And honestly, in a kind of a piercing way, the same way Teresa of Avila was when she's talking about hell. It's like, guys, this is a real thing, and we need to be careful. It's not meant to necessarily do a negative fear, but a good fear. Yeah.
Well, and he's, by the end of the first century, he is, it's starting to be polemic, and he's presenting a contested Christianity, right? Even the opening of 1 John, what we have seen with our eyes and held with our hands, and Thomas put his finger in there, to dispute those who said that Jesus was not bodily resurrected. And so at this kind of close of the first century and the beginning, he's probably the last of the disciples. And the wars over who Jesus is and how to follow him have already begun. And so it doesn't surprise me altogether that he's a little bit more polemic in those. But I think you're picking that up well.
What's polemic?
You mentioned obedience. I just wanted to share.
Fighting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. I just wanted to. It put me in mind of something I read in the Desert Fathers. There's one story of this disciple who loved his master so greatly, and he was the most obedient of all of the students. And one time they came back in and they found that he'd been writing a script, and he hadn't even completed the O that he had been writing because his master had called him. So he didn't even bother waiting to finish. He just like stopped and then went to him. I love that. Okay, so Matt, you've been reading. Andrew, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Just settling into my first year at Church of the Messiah. First 6 months as a priest. We have a cohort that gathers a few priests who are in new positions in the diocese or new to the diocese. And we have been getting together once a month, and we've stopped for the summer. But on our last meeting, we talked a fair bit about Sabbath and how to take not only a day off, but also a Sabbath day. And so I've been trying to do that, and that's part of the reorganization of my room. I mean, I'm letting you all see my floor because, I couldn't before.
Honestly, you're right. You used to have massive stacks of books.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I didn't actually realize that.
There's my backpack. And
Yeah,
there's my
well
chair, and I've organized things, and I've got
Well
one
done, my
stack
good and
right
faithful
there. But
co-host.
that's a friend who has purchased a number of things from my stocks, but just trying to kind of have some balance, take some time. Krista and I have started walking in the morning, and so we're working on our health and balancing everything out. This is the first summer I haven't had a summer vacation, and I don't know how long, because I've been in the educational system for so many years, and so. No trips or anything. My rector and a bunch of others leave to the Holy Land on Saturday, and I'm the guy. I'm in charge for a couple of weeks. So, yeah, pray for Church of the Messiah. Yeah, so just a little of that. I also wanted to read you this marvelous quote because I had to text it to Diana. This is from Arthurian Torso. And he's talking about this kind of fragment of an essay that Williams wrote about the figure of King Arthur. And he says, the first 2 chapters had been read aloud by the author to Professor Tolkien and myself. It may help the reader to imagine the scene, or at least it is to me both great pleasure and great pain to recall. Picture to yourself, then, an upstairs sitting room with windows looking north into the grove of Magdalen College on a sunshiny Monday morning in vacation at about 10 o'clock. The professor and I, both on the Chesterfield, lit our pipes and stretched out our legs. Williams, in the armchair opposite to us, threw his cigarette into the grate and took up a pile of the extremely small, loose sheets on which he habitually wrote. They came, I think, from a 2-penny pad for memoranda, and began as follows. But I can picture that because I was in that sitting room at about 10 o'clock in the morning. And so I just snapped a picture of that and sent it to Diana Glyer, with whom I visited Lewis's rooms about a year ago right now. So, yeah, so a lot of memories of vacations in years past, and just, carry on with the work.
Do you guys want to get political?
What are we drinking first? Are you drinking?
I'm drinking a little bit more road slush.
Some melatonin to put me to bed after this, so there's no alcohol going on in my system. Okay. We're recording this at my bedtime.
Offer it up, man.
I know.
I was going to do a gin and tonic, but I forgot to get lime or cucumber, and so I'm doing Boddingtons in my pints glass.
Well, before Matt gets political and ruins everything, I did want to say I ordered the script for Further Up and Further In, because one of our listeners went and saw it, and he said he picked it up at the performance. And I was like, wait, this thing's available? Because I live in La Crosse, Wisconsin. They are not coming anywhere near me. So I figured I could at least read through it.
Grand Rapids.
Well, there might be a trip at some point.
Yeah.
By the way, the script to Most Reluctant is also available.
Okay.
I will say, I didn't know what to expect, and the whole thing was fantastic. The last half was my favorite half. I thought the last half was better than the first half, and
it always is for you.
it was just crescendoing to this really big finish, and it's just this building, and I don't know if I was expecting that in a good sense, and maybe that was the problem with the first half, was just being so rooted in this. I kind of knew a lot of that journey, but it became very much like an evangelizing tool, almost like it was a powerful message at the end, and it was inspiring to me, and I was like, whoa. Yeah. I liked it a lot.
I've seen it a couple times now, and I went with a family member, a non-believing family member, at the first one, and I was worried that they were going to feel like I was doing a little too much bashing. I also noticed about it that, and I've seen everything except for Martin Luther on trial, everything that's been on tour from FPA, and there were more laugh lines in further up, further in. And Max said the response to that play has been by far the best that he's ever had. So, cheers to Max.
Yes.
Cheers. Yeah, I thought in future Common Room we might do a little bit of a table read of a bit of it, and you guys can tell me what it was like to actually visit it, since I'm not expecting getting to it anytime soon.
Huh. Gentlemen, we still need to do a Chicago weekend,
before, right?
Sorry,
Matt, what'd you say?
Well, I was going to say, gentlemen, we still need to do a Chicago weekend and maybe figure out some C.S. Lewis event or play or something, and we all meet there.
That is a distinct possibility. I'm going to be there in September for work, and then probably in December is going to be the next September, October, November, December. Probably December or January will be the next time.
I could probably do September. Yeah. My August, I'm in Ireland the back half of August.
Ooh.
Okay.
When in September?
I'm excited.
David?
I just pretty much finished planning it after about 20 hours of multiple Word documents and Googling everything around Limerick, Killarney, Galway, all this stuff to do.
Are you going to go to Belfast?
No.
You're not going to go to C.S. Lewis's home.
Oh, you're right. It didn't cross my mind.
Pull up the spreadsheet again, Bubba. I missed out.
Oh, I just got it's like I feel like this is doing a wedding seating chart. I can't move this around now. It's all locked in.
Belfast. There's a whole C.S. Lewis Square. The doors to the reading room at Queen's University are the doors to the actual wardrobe from the movie.
Is that near any of the cities I listed?
It's in the north. It's in Protestant Northern Ireland.
That's probably a bit away. I'm going west. Go west, son.
By the way, the C.S. Lewis Foundation is exploring the possibility in 2025 of going to Belfast instead of Oxbridge. And that there might be some likelihood. The Titanic Museum is there, and Lewis watched the Titanic be built from his home. He looked down on Belfast Lough. So, envious. Well, I may try to join you in September. We've got a lot of travel in October, but I need a research trip to the Wade. I'm way overdue. And so that may be something to do. If given enough notice, I might be asked to give a talk at the Bakke Center at the Wade. Not to flex or anything, but...
yes.
C.S. Lewis and the Myth of Love at the Wades. I'll just set that here. So, let's look at plans.
Mm-hmm.
So my political thing, since we're getting
all right,
to the end.
Go on, ruin everything.
Did you guys see that headline of the Church of England or the Church in England wanting to they were talking about, or made a comment about understanding that saying "Our Father" and the "Our Father" could be triggering.
My church.
Is that true? I guess the first question is it true? I mean, I didn't decide to dive into it.
So that's the Archbishop of York. He's the number 2 man in England. And what I would do is encourage you to get a transcript of his actual remarks and read his actual remarks. And what he says there is actually true and to some degree helpful. The course of action about it puzzles me. And I don't think that there's any chance that the Church of England is going to change the Lord's Prayer in the Book of Common Prayer any soon. In fact, I can almost definitively say it won't. But
was
what
the
he
action?
did say was,
Like,
well,
what was
and
the
I
difference
don't
between-
have the words in front of me,
Yeah.
but the effect of it was to acknowledge that patriarchy and a difficult relationship with a father could, both of those things could make
Oh,
the
I
opening
heard that.
line of the Lord's Prayer problematic to some people, and I know that that is certainly true.
Yeah.
And the effort in some cases, to move towards gender neutral language is an effort to undo some of the sins done by people in the name of patriarchy. And so I'm sympathetic for any move that tries to comfort and heal, right? I am not sympathetic to changing the Lord's Prayer. And I wouldn't change Father any more than I would change our. And there's a reason that God chose to express himself within a patriarchal culture. And it's not like he didn't know where we would be now. Nevertheless, I want to acknowledge, especially as a priest, that for some people that prayer is triggering and problematic and difficult. And I pray that God heals, and I pray that the church is part of that healing for some of those wounds. So, but I would actually read the Archbishop's actual
And
remarks,
actually, it's
because
funny,
you're going to
it's
get a lot of Twitter stuff going on about
Yeah,
it.
it's actually interesting you say it. Now that you say it, I do remember this now. The thing that I had come across, I think, talked about, it was Michael Knowles, the Catholic guy, listed, said everything you said almost verbatim. And I think the thing I was thinking at the time was, I like the idea of acknowledging it. My thought was, this has a healing opportunity. Like, I would almost look at it as the Our Father would be more of a healing thing of when your earthly father or patriarchy structure or whatever it is. Like, I look at it, I had some struggles for a while with my own mother, and I didn't like look at the praying to the Hail Mary. In fact, she became for a while like my pseudo mother to some degree in a healing sense, despite some wounds, traumas. And so I remember thinking, like, even if this is not even if this is true for sure, that there's people that have deep parental wounds, father wounds, patriarchy wounds, it almost felt like it sounds like they're not doing this action, like you said. If any place did, not just the Church of England, it could be anything. There's lots of denominations, probably lots of different denominations that have potentially done this. My thought was this would be the opposite action I would think would be healing, was my thought. But now this is all more coming back to me. This was a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Well, do you remember we
No,
had
that's
that
helpful.
episode where I spoke about becoming a father? And I butchered the quotation, but I was quoting Ephesians 3, where St. Paul says, "It's for this reason I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named." Basically, our families are a pale imitation of that. He is the true, the concrete, the ideal. We're all the poor imitations. We're all the faulty copies. And so I'm with you. I think that I think it probably can be better used as a mode of healing, to understand that although fathers have failed repeatedly, and I said that's pretty much my final blessing over my son every night, to ask for forgiveness for not doing everything that I should have done as a dad, that it's looking back to the fountainhead, it's looking back to the source as to how things are meant to be, not our failing and faltering attempts.
Yeah, the healing of the sins of patriarchy, and they are many, is to be found in the true Father, right? The failings of our earthly fathers are resolved in our Heavenly Father. Here's what he said. It's Archbishop Stephen Cottrell of York. And here's exactly what he said, and it was a brief aside during a meditation at General Synod on the Lord's Prayer. "I know the word father is problematic for those whose experience of earthly fathers has been destructive and abusive, and for all of us who have labored rather too much from an oppressively patriarchal grip on life. I don't see anything objectionable about that, and he's not suggesting any course of action." And actually, the article that I'm reading now from The Guardian goes on to mention that he spent more time on the word our than he did on the word father. And here's what he had to say about our. And he's speaking about divisions in the Church of England, but I think it could be divisions anywhere. We remain stubbornly unreconciled, appear complacent about division, and often appear all too ready to divide again. We have got used to disunity. We think it's normal when in fact it is a disgrace, an affront to Christ and all he came to give us. So here he is calling us to greater unity, and he wasn't trying to be, a flamethrower or divisive, and I don't believe his actual remarks were.
There's nothing divisive about that.
And it's a skill that I learned from reading Lewis. When people object to Lewis and think that Lewis is sexist or racist or, anti-Semitic, whatever, if you actually read what Lewis says and read it carefully for understanding, so much of that goes away. And that's part of why I say that Lewis taught me how to think and how to read. Because if you consider carefully the words from the source, not the tongue wag that begins to get appropriated on Twitter and everywhere else. I think what the Archbishop said was very pastoral.
You mean that tweet from that person in the room with 22 followers that I came across wasn't accurate? Just kidding.
Yeah. What is that?
Well.
I'm sorry that your Google search has trumped my medical degree.
You mean my ChatGPT search?
Let's not
Did you hear ChatGPT got dumber? That's a real thing, actually. The June version versus the March version was answering tests, and OpenAI just released a statement today allowing you to revert back to March because of just some ways that they changed some stuff. It couldn't answer certain stuff as accurately.
Well,
Be careful
I
with
hope
AI.
if the super intelligent artificial intelligence can get dumber every day, I think we should pay attention to the things that we say ourselves. I might not actually be getting better each day.
Well, and I love what you said about the trouble with your mother and going to the Blessed Virgin. I think that you all and I are maybe a little divided on Our Lady, but not all that much. And in some ways, I consider her the best human embodiment of all that God means about the maternal. And I pray to her, trusting that the Lord understands that my prayers to Our Lady are essentially prayers to his own maternal nature, in the person of the one he chose to be, his handmaiden and his vessel. And I think that any parent is going to be imperfect, right?
Real quick
The
question,
lectionary
actually.
reading just last week was about Rebecca and Isaac, and they had played favorites with their children. And the resolution to imperfect parenting and the wounds that leaves behind is to go to the perfect parent, to our Father, and to his Son, and to Our Lady too. Yeah, sorry, man.
Real quick question. Does Church of England pray just to saints in general, like the Catholic Church, or they take more of the Protestant stance on that?
It's a Reformed church, yeah, and so they don't pray to Mary and they don't pray to saints, although there's space to do that. And let's also distinguish: the Church of England is one of the constituent members of the Anglican Communion, and so that's like it's like the Byzantine Catholic Church is part of the global Roman Catholic Church.
Gotcha.
And so so I don't belong to the Church of England. I belong to the Episcopal Church, in capital letters, which is one of the provinces of the Worldwide Anglican Communion. And part of why I'm a member of that is because I believe that the history of our churches matters, and the long tradition of liturgy matters. I get to meet with somebody in my parish who was spent the last 25 years as a Baptist, and they're doing some staff work. And I get to tell them about the history of liturgical church. And so,
I love it.
for me, it's been a way to enrich my Christianity to be part of it.
Well, speaking of liturgy, this video should go out before this weekend. Lucy Francis is going to be baptized. It's going to be amazing.
Oh, yay. Congratulations.
So we'll be heading up to Minneapolis. Her godparents are visiting from Colorado. My best man, his wife, both of whom have been my former roommates. Their kids, who have also been my former roommates. So we're having a ball at the moment, and we've just got all of the kids down. So I'm going to go carry on the party. So I think we should wrap it up there.
Yes. What day is she going to be baptized, David?
This Sunday.
Sunday. At what time?
Probably around 10ish. Because it's actually going to be in the liturgy.
You could dedicate a mass to her, Andrew.
At Central Time, yes?
Yes. Yes, because it'll be in Minneapolis.
I'll be in the middle of my 11 o'clock liturgy, and I'm on my own. And so at the altar, every day with every service I'll have 4 liturgies that I'll be celebrating. And at each liturgy, I will remember by name Lucy, the newest Christian in all the world. So when we say the Lord's Prayer, I put my fingers on the paten with the consecrated host. And I try to also remember people and situations that have come to mind. And so I will certainly have her in my intentions this coming Sunday. And congratulations to you.
Thank you. All right, gentlemen.
Great.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Good to catch up with you. See you, listeners.
Cheers.
I don't have anything.
Cheers.